So, the game that I desperately wanted to talk about last week and couldn't just because timing and embargoes and everything. It actually it feels like it's been like 2 weeks since this embargo dropped, even though it was only like Tuesday.
Mm.
That's the sort of week I've had. But Death's Door. I think it's made by a studio called Acid Nerve. I think that's their name.
Acid Nerve.
Um,
What a
yeah,
name.
their previous work, it's a fairly small studio. If I'm not mistaken, there's only like 2 people, and then they outsource a lot of different things.
Oh, wow.
I've seen people saying, "Oh, Death's Door is made by 2 people." No, it's not. Go look at the credits. Like
There's a lot of people.
it's design studios, maybe 2 people, but they outsource a lot of things, like as one does. But yeah, their previous game was Titan Souls, which I'm sure you've heard of.
I've heard of. I've not played it.
Yeah, same. So I know what it looks like. It's like a 2D, also like a 2D combat game, but it was a boss rush game. So similar to like Fury, I assume, where it's just bosses and whatever. So this is more akin to like I've seen people calling it a Zelda-like. I don't fully agree with that. I mean, there's dungeons and whatever, but to me it feels more like a Bastion in structure and style. It's an isometric third-person action game with a sort of like wide linear design. So you're plopped into several different hubs, and your progression through the hubs, or your progression through the entire story, is kind of like governed by the abilities you have at that time. So like the first hub you're in is called the Lost Cemetery, and there's 3 distinct routes you can take to get out of there. But you can only really take one with your abilities currently, so that's the route you take. So not a Metroidvania, so to speak, but, you know, like how adventure games progress, how a Zelda progresses, I guess. Like you can only access certain dungeons with certain things. So yeah, additionally, I've seen a lot of people asking if it's a roguelite. It's super not. It's an adventure game.
It's funny though, because I think when you and I watched the trailer a few months ago, like I think our immediate thought was, oh, it's a roguelite. Just because it looks...
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Lupin.
Yeah,
like,
it kind of looked like the 2021 version of Hades. Like, oh, this is going to be Hades. This is a combat fighting game with hard-looking enemies and tough combat. But yeah, it's not a roguelite. It is, I found it challenging, but not like super challenging. There were parts where I died, especially 1 or 2 bosses that gave me some trouble, but I didn't find it like oppressively challenging. But like when you
keeping with this tyrant theme.
Yes, exactly. But when you die, you don't lose currency, you don't lose weapons, you don't have to grind anything, or you don't have to restart. You just, you start at you start at the last like door, so to speak, that you came through into the hub, which usually there's only like 1 in the hub that you're exploring, but in a sort of Souls-like style, as you progress through the hub, you unlock shortcuts that all lead back to that point.
Yeah.
So when you die, you can cut out large swaths of things that you've already progressed, which feels very nice. Like it's got that really satisfying like click where it's like you open up a shortcut, you're like, oh, the level's like folded on itself like this, and it's super.
So
super
I've
cool.
only played about an hour, well, I'll call it just shy of an hour of this game, and I've already seen that in the Lost Cemetery where it happens quite regularly actually, where you do like an area, you turn a corner, you're like, oh, this leads back right to that part over there. Then you venture a bit further, and it just loops back around in a very smart and clever way. Like, oh, if I die, I can just zip through this path over here. Really, just from that alone, I'm like, damn, this is some pretty neat design.
Yeah, the level design is really good, and like the shortcuts end up like linking up with each other. So you'll unlock a path that links to another shortcut that you'll recognize, and you'll be like, okay, so when I die, I take this shortcut and then turn there. I think it's really cool. It's a neat means of progression because you're only tackling small bite-sized portions of each hub at a time. Because if you die, you can just cut out like a whole section. And it ties into the game's like the way it handles healing, which I think is very unique and quite interesting. So again, sort of like a Souls-like. So I want to stress. I say Souls-like. This game is not a Souls-like.
Not a Souls-like.
I don't think it's hard in that way. You don't lose currency when you die, so you're not losing progression. But it has elements from its design that I think it adopts from a Souls-like. So, in a Dark Souls, you have your campfires where that's your only means of healing, and usually in there your shortcuts loop back to a campfire or a lantern in Bloodborne's sake. Here, each of the hubs has certain like pots, like a pot with like soil and stuff. And when you get to there, if you have a seed, you can plant a seed there that grows a flower that heals you. And those flowers regenerate every time you die. Yeah. So what you can end up doing, depending on... So firstly, you have to find the seeds in the world, which aren't always... I mean, you find some naturally and some are like more outside the main sort of path. Yeah. And then you have to find a pot where you can plant them. And then you have to kind of think like, okay, the last time I planted a healing plant was like 2 or 3 sections back. So do I really need to spend a seed here and plant it here? Is this part hard enough that I think I'll need health when I, come back here? And it, I thought it was a really cool mechanic because you're basically playing risk and reward every time you come to these pots. Like if you have a seed, do you want to spend it here, or will there be a section further on that is more challenging that you might need it there, or will there be even a pot that you can plant it in? So I thought it was quite a neat thing, and the fact that you can only use them once per life is quite cool. So you can't just like use it, die a little bit, backtrack and use it again. It's like, no, you've got to be strategic in how you use them. So I thought that was really cool, and a really cool spin on how healing works in a game like this, because I've never seen a game that does something similar to that. It's quite neat. So yeah, you were saying before the podcast that you think it's really pretty.
It's got a very distinct I don't know, it's an interesting palette and just look to the game. It's like I'm trying to think of something I could compare it to, but there's something about, so for example, where it's like you've said before, it's an isometric adventure game, so obviously top down, but there's something about when you're on a platform, like that platform's in focus, but everything, if there's platforms underneath it, it's like blurred. It's just the way
it's got a really strong like bokeh effect.
Yeah, but when you move, as you move through the level, it's just visually very nice to look at. It's a super pretty
I was
game.
wondering if I was going mad because like I noticed immediately what you were saying, that like blurred outlines, and I was like, what is going on here? But it's so cleverly done to keep things that you can interact with in focus.
And it just makes everything pop. Yeah, but I suppose just for context as well, because I don't think we've mentioned, but Death's Door is essentially a game where the premise is are you a crow or you're a crow, right? I actually quite like how the premise is set up. So I in my opening hour, that was like the introduction where I saw the splash screen Death's Door, and the whole premise is that you are a crow who has to go collect souls because, actually, you could probably explain it better because you've played the game a lot more. But my understanding is when there's a door open to collect a soul, you age in that realm. So you obviously have to collect the soul to, stay young. Is that the whole hook?
Yeah.
But you get sent on a mission to collect a big soul. I don't know what the correct term is. But an older crow essentially steals the soul to try, because they're trying to get into a thing called Death's Door. But
where he believes his soul that he was assigned to like escaped to.
Yeah. So this poor crow is like old now because he hasn't, acquired the soul he was assigned to. And now by him stealing your soul, he's like, oh well, I guess you're gonna have to help me get into Death's Door. And I thought that was quite a clever little, setup.
It's a really cool setup. Like yeah, like you said, so when you start the game, it's all monochrome and it feels like almost like a noir mystery, and you're in this like bureaucratic office filled with crows, and they are responsible for reaping souls across, all manners of time and space, essentially. They've taken over the Grim Reaper's job. and they're afforded the ability to hop between areas by these like doors, which are controlled by this being called the Lord of Doors. So,
you've heard of Lord of the Dance, like get ready for Lord of the Doors.
Lord of the Doors, exactly. He's dancing on keys and locks. That's all he does.
I'd watch that.
Yeah, I'd watch that too. Imagine the sound it would make with the tapping shoes. That'd be fantastic.
Just the clinking keys. Holy shit.
Yeah,
we're onto something.
Be so ASMR to a new level, I tell you.
Shit.
So once a crow is assigned a soul to reap, they start aging. And only when they turn in that soul does the aging stop. So yeah, like you said, it's like this. It is a sort of like treadmill. Where they are constantly working to keep their immortality going. And since your soul is stolen, you kind of have to help this old crow to regain your soul, otherwise you're going to die. And the story goes in some cool places. Like it starts questioning, like, you know, is immortality the correct way, you know, the natural flow of life? And you come across characters who think what you're doing is completely wrong. And all the bosses you fight are strong souls because they've found a way to extend their life unnaturally, and that's why their soul is like, it's almost like this, your soul is like inflamed from all the life you've been living. But at the same time, you know, we just both came off Chicory, which was a very hard story emotionally to take. It's very serious and very hard hitting. Death's Door presents these ideas, but it's very funny.
Yeah, it's like
very non-serious. Yeah, like,
I mean, no, go for it.
Oh no, go for it.
No, I was gonna say, even in the opening like 10 minutes when you get your first assignment, the crow who gives it to you basically says like, you know, this is the cycle of life, you know, a rat race. And I'm like, that's like already there's some commentary, I guess, on, you know, our daily grind. We work hard to make money, but do we get to enjoy that money because we're just working all the time? It's like,
yeah,
okay,
it's 100% that.
But it's presented, and like you said, it's very quirky. It's like, yeah, it's a rat race. Like, go get the soul now. It's like, oh, okay, like I'll do it.
Yeah, like this is such a weird thing to like. It feels weird. It's like a corporation that's overseeing the souls of everyone in the world. It's very strange.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like as you start planting those healing plants around the world, these little like sprouts, they almost look like sentient buds, like flower buds. They spawn around there and they follow you. And the more you plant out in the world, the more appear in the central hub, like the Commission of Crows. And the dialogue around them is so funny because they just chill out on like the desks of other crows. And then I came across one that was black and I was like, what the hell? And the crow was like, oh, he fell into my ink bowl, but he doesn't seem to mind. It's just like, it's really cute and quirky. And like, you haven't fought one of the main bosses yet, but after each boss fight, you have a sort of funeral for the boss, which I thought was very interesting.
Wow.
Like, and even then, it's just like you're eulogizing this character who was evil and bad, but it's funny and quirky. It's great. It's got a great sense of humor and just like really good writing. That's punchy when it needs to be, but also very lighthearted. This is not a story that's meant to make you sad, put it that way.
Yeah.
But it is thought-provoking at times.
No, it definitely touches on some themes, which is quite cool.
It is a very so I finished the game in about 8 hours and I stuck a lot to the main path, but there is so much to do like outside of the main path. There's whole weapons that don't appear on the main path. So like if you want to acquire new weapons, which I don't find one weapon better than the other, because the combat is very purposeful in a way. Like it takes a while to get used to. Every time you hit attack, you have to wait for that animation to end. You cannot break out of an animation. So again, talking about like a Souls-like comparison here. So it can feel weird if you just like mashing on the attack button and then hoping that when you hit dodge, you'll be able to dodge out of step with your attacks, sort of like a character action game. That's super not what happens. And if you overextend, you will get hit.
Yeah.
And you have very limited life. So, each weapon has a certain number of combos that you can put out before you take like an extended break before your next swing. And new weapons play around with that. New weapons have like different attack times and different combo counts and different combo refresh counts. So I didn't find any one better than the other, but it was really cool to have like, your standard sword has a certain rhythm to it, and then you can find daggers that are much faster but do less damage, or like a much larger sword that has better range, but as games do, that will be much slower. So finding weapons is cool. Finding new spells. The spells are kind of like what govern your movement through the world. So you start with an arrow spell, I think, or you don't have that yet.
No, you do. You've got not a spell. I've got a bow and arrow though.
So those are technically like spells. You get a bow and arrow. Eventually, you get like, I guess this is why people call it Zelda. Like talking about it, I'm like, that sounds like Zelda. You get like a bomb. You get a hook shot.
Oh wow,
this is Zelda.
This is literally Zelda.
Literally Zelda.
Although on that quickly, I found it very interesting that the bow and arrow. So I don't know if this applies to all the spells. I presume it does. But you get a number of charges that you can use, and to replenish them, you have to attack. Which I found
it's exactly the same. Yeah.
Very similar to Hollow Knight, except you're
right.
To heal
actually,
and also cast spells, which is quite cool.
I didn't even think. I forgot that Hollow Knight had that mechanic.
Yeah.
So it's the same. You don't have to attack an enemy, which is nice. If there's something around you that is breakable, it will recharge the slot too. But it's essentially that. Like, and once you find a new spell, you'll have access to the new main area, but there's still lots of things in your existing areas or ones you've already unlocked to go and rediscover. And sometimes I found, like, I said this in my review, but like the shrines that you find to increase your life and magic, or your, the ability meter, they are sometimes so far off the main path that I genuinely got to the end of the game without upgrading my life or my magic. Because I only found because you need to find 4 to upgrade it once. And I only found 2 of each. And I was looking, I unlocked all the weapons, I unlocked some additional combat challenges that upgrade your abilities. But shrines for healing and stuff, they were so weirdly on the periphery of the game that I don't know. I think if you're struggling with the game, to have to then go seek those out really diligently, maybe wrecks the pacing a little bit. But otherwise it's 8 hours. I finished, got to credits, and then, not to spoil anything, but something happens after the credits of that game that changed the game. It's sort of like your Castlevania inverted castle type of thing.
Oh wow, that's cool.
You can play the game in a completely different state, which gives you new challenges.
Nice.
They
literally flip the castle on its head, and that's what they do in this game.
It essentially. So if you focus, the entirety of the game takes place during daytime, there's a thing you can do to change it to night, and then everything's different.
Oh wow. Okay.
The enemies and areas are different. There are certain aspects of maps that are different. There will be one part that is covered in water during the day, but at night there's no water, so you can access a new area.
Oh, that's cool.
Stuff like that. Really, really cool. So there's a lot to dig into after the fact. If I'm not mistaken, Andy Cortez from Kinda Funny, he 100%ed the game, and his time was 26 hours.
Oh, jeez. So,
there's a lot you can do in that game. So, it's good. I really, really liked it. I think it's, Chicory, indie games are really propping up this year in terms of quality. And I think it's only on PC and Xbox, but I think it's a game everyone should definitely play, especially if you enjoyed Hollow Knight, if you enjoyed Bastion, if you enjoy Zelda games, you will 100% love this game. It's super good.
I don't know what the cost is overseas. I mean, I imagine it's $20, maybe.
I think so.
20 or 30. I mean, if you're in South Africa though, it's I got it, the launch, the pre-launch 15% off, so it was $150. Otherwise it's $175.
Oh really? Is that how cheap it is on Steam?
Super cheap, yeah. I mean, and that's
I don't know how much it is on Xbox, but it's not on Game Pass, unfortunately. I really thought it would be, considering it's only on Xbox and PC. But yeah, it's a great game, I think. And again, just like Chicory, not a really demanding game visually. Should run on a lot of things. So yeah, it's one of those games that, like, you look at the Steam Deck, you're like, yeah, this is what this device is for. I'd fucking play this on a Steam Deck. That'd be great.
This game has to come to Switch, man. Like, why isn't it on Switch?
This game on Switch would be fantastic. It would be super, just like Hades. Like, I would, if it was on Switch, that's where I would have played it. But
you'd 100% it as well then.
So you're playing it on PC. I assume you're using a controller. Yeah. Listen, these sorts of games, I think, require a controller, because I tried it with mouse and keyboard, and no.
Controllers
just does not feel good.
Mouse and keyboard's the only way if you're playing a first-person shooter, maybe a third-person shooter as well.
Yeah, like an over-the-shoulder third-person.
Yeah, or like a real-time strategy game. Then
exactly.
Mouse and keyboard's the most important component.
No, I can't.
Yeah,
but yeah, it was funny though, because it really reminded me of Bastion, and then it launched on Bastion's 10th anniversary, which I thought was kind of fitting.
Coincidence? I think not.
I think not. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm early days, but I'm very much looking forward to sinking my teeth into this game. I think it's right up my alley.
Oh yeah, I think there are certain combat challenges that will be super up your alley. Like there were moments there I was like, oh, Matty's gonna fucking love this.
Can't wait.
I knew immediately. Really, really good game.